during the points where the sun was up in the sky and the sun was the highest in the northern hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
And now we start it at, in the middle of the night and in the winter. So there's some symbolism there, and I'll get back to that. But from there, the film brings you through paganism, that's rampant in a lot of our monotheistic religions today. I don't have time to get really into the examples, obviously, but you can find extraordinary work on this through even Jordan Maxwell. A lot of Jordan Maxwell's work gets into the astrotheology, and a lot of the astrology that's in the religions that we have today. And I encourage everyone to look into Jordan Maxwell's work. It's really inspiring.
Indeed.
It then moves you through the key players. The film moves you through like some of the key players in the bloodlines that have really moved quietly through the ages and all the upper echelons of society that we have. These select few people have seemed to emerge on the top of corporations and media and banking and government all the time that we see. Now we're even seeing pop culture icons ushering in new fashions. Elvis Presley, I didn't find this out till just about a year ago that Elvis Presley is actually has a bloodline relation to Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
And you can find great information on the aristocratic families and where they came from and where they've gone through Burke's Peerage.
Yeah,
I think it's
that's one of them. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's biannual or if it's annual literature that they put out, but others such as Eustace Mullins, and there's quite a lot of people that get into the bloodlines. Also, Fritz Springmeier had a book, The 13 Illuminati Bloodlines.
Yeah.
But what's shown in these aristocratic families, is that really they've never lost power. They just seem to have either changed names and just moved into different areas. But again, the film moves you through that, and then we have particular pagan dates, and the film gets into this. Pagan dates that align perfectly with modern political and military events. I think we have Waco and Oklahoma City bombings, which were both on April 19th I think Waco was in 92 and Oklahoma City bombing was in 95. David Icke wrote in the book The Biggest Secret that April 19th was a pagan ritual holiday where sacrifice of children was made by fire. So in Waco we have the Branch Davidians. We find children who were burnt, men, women, and children who were burned alive. And this was really no suicide cult. I even in the film I include live footage showing that the military tanks deployed to these scenes, punching holes in the walls, in equidistant locations for better airflow, so the fire would run a little bit more rampant. And instead of rounds of ammunition, the tanks actually had flamethrowers at the end of them. And anyone who'd like to believe that this is unfounded evidence would do very well to know that all this was caught on camera.
Yeah.
Like all of this is there's footage of this. Yet the official report was filed, obviously, that the Branch Davidians committed mass suicide, setting themselves on fire. So, and then the Oklahoma City bombing. I don't want to get too far into all the evidence behind this, but even in the film, I would say about 6 or 7 news clips of people on the day of saying that there were multiple bombs found, some undetonated within the building. So
right.
It's kind of odd to find that the official report was that this was a fertilizer bomb parked out in front, and the method of one person, when there's explosive experts talking about how these were highly sophisticated bombs.
Yeah.
And it couldn't have been done by just some random person. So, and there's a lot of other things around that date, April 19th. We find the Columbine shooting, which was just a day afterward, involving children.
Yeah.
And we have this is a loose. What's that?
Yeah, I just want to mention even Virginia Tech is very close around
April 16th.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have,
and that's these are actually young adults in Virginia Tech, but if you think about it, it's not too off from the age of the Columbine children. I mean, these it's a college, so they must have been 17, 18 years old, or 18, 19 maybe. So that's right around that one date, obviously, and then we have all the links with Princess Diana's death, August 31st, which was said to be the mirror or the reverse of the day of Hecate, where she crashed into the 13th pillar of the tunnel.
Yeah.
You know, and what that supposedly symbolizes the death of the goddess Diana, and you know, same name, which is quite interesting right there.
Yeah, indeed.
Obviously, I mean, there's parallels between the Lincoln and the Kennedy assassinations. Not sure if you've heard any of them.
Well, I actually had that up on the website a while back. We don't need to go over all of them right now, but I mean, it's very interesting, and it really kind of shows that either there's something, you know, really weird going on, or this is highly controlled, you know, and we can, you know, speculate on what that is and so forth, but it's very interesting nonetheless, you know.
Right, yeah, and I mean, this is just information pretty much. It's just, you know, I'm not trying to persuade anybody of this or that, but you know, like obviously when you look into a lot of these synchronicities and a lot of the, you know, these parallels, especially like with the pagan dates and, you know, these links, it's kind of one of those things that you can either call it a coincidence, or, you know, you can come to your own conclusion in your mind, but you know, the film is really about just getting the information out there to, you know, to the people that might not be aware of these things.
Right.
So, I mean, there's parallels between the dates of September 11th and I guess October 7th, the date that we invaded Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. There's actually a program about the Mayan calendar dates where September 11th was the date of 6 epochs in the Mayan calendar date, which represents large-scale upheaval and unbalancing, when October 7th, the date we invaded Afghanistan, was 6K, which represents balancing. You know, coincidence maybe, I don't know.
Right.
But then you have March 20th of 2003 when the U.S. invaded Iraq. For 2 days, there was large-scale bombings held all over Baghdad, which happened to be the date of the Eve of Ostara. That's a pagan ritual known as the Day of Feast, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
They're believed to be what was it? That war ended on May 1st, which was Beltane or May Day,
mm-hmm.
you know, known to the Druids. And just like a lot of these parallels that, you know, I go into this a lot more in the film, so, you know, I'm not going to try and go over all of it today, but obviously just watch the film and just, you know, make up your own mind. Just these are things that you can honestly look up for yourself right on the internet. It takes you 5 minutes to see how a lot of these, you know, pagan dates line up with a lot of things that are going on in today's day and age. So it's something that, you know, the listeners can really find out for themselves if they want. But the film then brings you through a lot of the UN programs that we're facing now. Mm-hmm. And obviously we know a lot about the UN. I don't have to get too far into everything surrounding the UN, but first of all, Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, it's called, is something, you know, everyone should be looking into a bit more if they're not familiar with it. There's a thing called the Wildlands Project, and this is something that, you know, obviously right now I'm just talking about how it affects the United States, but it's a UN program, obviously, from a global to local level. So if you look into, especially around where I am, they don't call it Agenda 21 or Sustainable Development. I'm failing to remember what they actually call it, but they call it by a different name.
Mm-hmm.
But it all goes back to basically the Agenda 21 or Sustainable Development movement. And the Wildlands Project that they're proposing is disgusting, really. It's I think it's around 50% of the U.S. land they're proposing to give back to nature in a way, mm-hmm. with no admittance to human life. There's a map that I show, and I think it was Dr. Eric Shaw or Michael Shaw, I believe it is, out in Santa Cruz that did a speech on all of this, and he showed the map showing that, you know, the amount of land that's going to be off limits to human life, and then the amount of land that's going to be highly controlled, you know, limited to highly controlled operations for human, you know, human interaction, whatever. And then there's little tiny black specks on it. You know, you look at the map and you'll be amazed at these little tiny black specks that are supposed to be the mega cities. These constructed where people are supposed to be stacked and packed into these tiny housing units with supposedly jobs assigned and children cared for by the state.
Right.
And I mean, that's, if that's not an Orwellian state, I don't know what is.
That's
and,
right.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
And I get a lot of emails asking if I truly believe that, these things will actually happen because, there's a possibility that they might not be put through. But, in my opinion, I think that my opinion on these things, on the likelihood of this happening, is of little importance. We're missing the bigger picture here. Why is such a powerful organization, such powerful people involved with the UN, even coming up with such programs? I think that's what we should be asking ourselves. Because the next one is the clincher, Codex Alimentarius.
Oh, yeah.
This is another one I've received a lot of emails about, saying that people just are not buying into it. They truly don't think that it'll ever happen. Codex Alimentarius is an offshoot proposed by the FAO and the WHO, and it's to control all the nation's foods and supplement consumption. And this program calls for global implementation. I think they said it was in the 80s where they called for the global implementation in December 31st, 2009.
Yeah.
Which is, just, a year and a half away right now. But what they're planning to do is outlaw vitamins and minerals on the basis that they're toxins, in a way. And, they plan to enforce injection of every dairy cow on the planet with Monsanto's recombinant bovine injection. Which, by the way, if you're not familiar with Monsanto, I'm sure, much of you listeners probably are, but the evil that surrounds Monsanto, just go and research that on your own. That in itself is amazing.
Yeah.
But under Codex, along with every dairy cow, every animal used for human consumption on the planet has to be injected with subclinical antibiotics, which is, in a sense, this is just pesticides for animals. And then you get into the whole problem with the pesticides in the foods. But then genetic manipulated food will become really what the standard of food is what we'll have, and that's scary enough on its own. But genetic manipulation to food scrambles the genetic structure, that we need to survive. Quick science lesson here, but our natural organic bodies need natural organic food in its unaltered state. It's obvious, otherwise we get inorganic ailments. We get cancer and these other preventable diseases that we're seeing a lot nowadays.
Yeah.
But I would say just in the past month I've received about 500 emails from people who specifically telling me that all this sounds way too difficult to believe, and that the WHO and the FAO projections that they themselves released to the public stated that the vitamin and mineral ban alone should cause an upwards of 3 billion deaths. 3 billion, like half the planet. And these aren't my words. These aren't anyone who's against Codex words. It's the WHO FAO projections that they themselves released. So, that right there sounds strikingly close to the agenda of what you would call population reduction.
Well, it is, and even, what was it, even 1 billion they project through starvation as a consequence of the banning also?
Oh yeah, just through simple starvation. And yeah, if you watch the film, I use a lot of clips from the film the speech Nutricide. Rima Lebo, I think it was her name, that was the physician that was talking about this. But the 2 billion, the 1 billion deaths just through simple starvation of the of what Codex Alimentarius is wishing to impose. But the other 2 billion that they're talking about obviously is going to be from preventable diseases, because we should all know this by now that vitamins and minerals, they prevent diseases a lot more than what you would get out of garlic or echinacea. But that actually brings me to my next point. A lot of these natural healthcare products, Henrik, have you heard about what has just been proposed on April 8th in Canada?
No.
The C-51 bill?
No, tell me about it.
Okay, well, just 1 month ago, there's April 8th. It hasn't passed yet, but it's gotten through 3 readings so far. I have some notes on this I'd actually like to share. What the C-51 bill is actually looking to do in Canada right now is to